question has to do with divorce. I've just discovered that the church that we attend now is kind of espousing divorce for not keeping up with your marital vows, as far as like the husband providing, or if he's into pornography, those areas. But as I studied the scriptures, from what I could see, there's only two things explicitly stated in scripture for divorce: is abandonment and adultery. So would it be right that our church would be expanding it into those other areas as well?
Marcia, thank you so much for that question, and a very complex issue. You know, when Jesus spoke about divorce in Matthew chapter 19, and he mentioned, one of the reasons for divorce being sexual immorality, which doesn't mean that when there's a case of infidelity that, couples are obligated, that they have to get a divorce. I've seen many instances, Marcia, where there has been marital unfaithfulness, where the couple stays together, and it's difficult, but there's healing and restoration and reconciliation, all those things, and it ends up being a beautiful picture of the power of the gospel to work in our relationships, even when there's been this great breach. But some people will say, well, that word that's used for sexual immorality in Matthew 19 is the Greek word porneia. It's where we get the word pornography from. Now, of course, they didn't have pornography in the same way that we oftentimes think about it today. They didn't have the technology, but there was all sorts of, just in the culture, sexual immorality and pornographic imagery, that kind of a thing. This really is, sister, like I said, a complex issue, and I would say it sort of depends on the situation. Typically, I would stick with those two things that you mentioned. You have the idea of abandonment in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, where the Apostle Paul talks about a spouse, a non-believing spouse, leaving essentially their believing spouse, and Paul saying, look, that you're no longer bound to that person. You're free. And then you also have this instance of sexual immorality. I think of marital unfaithfulness there in Matthew chapter 19. One thing I would caution is sometimes, it's heartbreaking, but sometimes I think that people are looking for an out. They want to find an out of their marriage, and so they'll say, well, my husband was unfaithful. He was looking at this other woman, that kind of a thing. That's porneia, that's adultery. And I think we have to be really, really careful. God says in his word he hates divorce. And even when there are instances, I think, of marital unfaithfulness, like I said, that doesn't mean that a couple is obligated to get a divorce. And so I think we have to sort of weigh each case on its own. I would want to sit down with the couple in question maybe and get some more background, more information to really understand what was going on. There are situations where there is this legitimate abandonment that takes place, and where there are serious cases of marital unfaithfulness, and somebody just basically may have a pornography addiction, that kind of a thing, a sexual addiction. And so we have to be aware of that, and also, like I said, not just giving up hope right away. And I think that sadly, that's what you see in a lot of these cases, people looking for a way out of the marriage covenant, of the marriage relationship. And so I would agree with you, Marcia, that the real clear ones that were given in Scripture are adultery and abandonment. And so I would say that's a good starting point. But I wouldn't want to necessarily say that your church, I wouldn't say, well, they're wrong, and I don't know the situation that's being spoken of. And so I would want more information. Thank you so much for your question, and may the Lord bless you.
Complicated issue, and of course, here at Core Christianity, we always want to support the sanctity of marriage and couples staying together, if at all possible, and certainly finding pastoral counsel or a therapist who can help them work on their marital issues.
Yeah. Absolutely, Bill. And I think, one of the big issues that we see in our society today is a devaluing of marriage. The author of the Hebrews said in Hebrews chapter 13, the marriage bed is called to be undefiled, that we should really treat it with dignity. And too often today, there's this sort of cheap view of sex, cheap view of marriage. It doesn't have that same value. That's what we're called. We're called to value marriage that the Scripture gives to it. And so for all of us, we're called to treasure marriage and this gift that God has given to us. And so, again, one of my big concerns, Bill, is that sometimes I've seen this happen. People are just looking for a way out. And that's where I try to counsel couples and say, hey, let's take a step back. Let's think about what marriage is and the fact that God is able to work in and through this situation. Now, one thing, Bill, that we've both talked about before that's really important is there are real legitimate cases of abuse. And so that just throws another wrench in this whole discussion, because I wouldn't ever want to encourage a woman to be in a situation where she was not safe. And so it's just such a complex issue, and really requires the care and the love of the local church to work through. Hey friends, thanks for watching that video. I trust that it was encouraging to you. Please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're looking for more great content coming from Core Christianity. And if you haven't done so yet, would you give this video a like? It's one of the ways that we can continue to get the word out. So like this video and subscribe to our channel for more content. May the Lord bless you.